Welcome back, everybody. Hope everyone's having a wonderful week so far. Welcome to episode 4. This is such a victory for me. And thank you for joining from the bottom of my heart. Today, I am really excited to share my guest today, Ashley Gonor. I am sure if you're like me, you will fall in love with her because her spirit is just a beam of light. Ashley actually has been my inspiration in getting my podcast launched. So thank you so much, Ashley. And so if it wasn't for her, I'd probably still be stumbling around and trying to figure out how to get this podcast launched. So a little bit about Ashley. She is the coach and creator of Raising Confidence. She coaches children, teens, and young adults to create a mindset that empowers and inspires them to live their best life. She is on a mission to empower millions of kids to learn their tools, to equip them to live a life with confidence, where they know that they can be, do, or have anything. During the pandemic, she started her podcast, Uncover Your Magic, where she provides a platform to people to share their magical journey to inspire others. Her quest is to make a difference in the lives of children, young adults, and the next generation to be their best so that they can be equipped to lead and encourage others to do the same. What an inspiration and a powerful mission Ashley is on, and I am pumped to have this conversation with her today. Hey, Ashley, how are you?
Thank you so much. You're so cute. You think of somebody just starting their journey, and I look back at you and remember when I was going, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. And honestly, to give some background, I think when Ashley was actually my first, we got acquainted through a mutual friend, and she was like, why don't you talk to Ashley? Because she started a podcast. And so then I think the first thing, I was so nervous to call you because I'm like, oh, she's probably like, for me, probably I was like, well, why would she want to help me? Like I want to do a podcast. Why would you want to help me succeed or whatever? And I remember your first thing that you said to me was, a friend of Trina's is a friend of mine. So I felt like, I think that was an instant connection for me with you. And I think now as we've gone, I think we talk almost every week or every other week.
Right.
That I feel like I've known you for so long. So
I love that. Because it is true with Trina, with anybody. If you've reached out to me, I would love to help you because I would love to have had someone who had gone down the journey and to relate to, like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Imposter syndrome, or who's going to listen to me? Who's going to come on and be a guest, right? All the questions that went through my head that are normal, but the pushing past the fear part, and doing things that, you had an inspired thought to have a podcast. Mm-hmm. So you're like, if you have that inspired thought, we've learned that through our, personal development journey, mm-hmm. You got to take it, there's just something there and you don't know, your why doing the podcast, but you just got to pick those breadcrumbs up. And in life, it's just like, you're going to look back and go, well, I did the podcast. I can do that. Like if I can do the podcast, anything I can do.
I'm laughing because I think even times when we had conversations where I was like, Ashley, are you sure this was an inspiration? Because it really doesn't feel like inspiration anymore. Each week when you get challenged with something new. So it was just, you were really amazing. And you're like, yep, keep going. It's an inspiration. Keep going. I don't care.
Yeah. There's no quitting. We just keep going.
And
it's so easy for you. It's just learning down the road. Like I've just recorded 80 episodes. So I haven't missed a week. And I think at the beginning, when you're like, first the solos, then, who am I going to ask? And, trying to figure out, am I going to not know what to ask and stop? And are they going to look at me like I'm, all the little things that the self-questioning and the doubt and, but when you start doing that, and it's just like a metaphor for life to me, like when you can do that and you just keep pushing and doing and making mistakes and learning and growing and meeting people. I mean, gosh, this podcast journey for me, it's opened up so many things for me. and to even have a business now and a website. And who was I? Like just this little mom from San Diego, sitting at home, folding clothes, loving podcasts, always sending them to everyone. And then thinking, they're probably like, gosh, Ashley, is that all you do is listen to podcasts? Because I have a load of them still to listen to. When do you have time? I always do. In the car, I don't listen to music.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Constant.
It's funny. Someone was saying yesterday, like, don't you just get sick of like your music after a while? And I'm like, yeah, no, because I think I listen to my music so less frequently now, because if I'm out exercising or if I'm cleaning the house or, driving, I'm listening to podcasts now. And it's, yeah, I mean, I really had no clue that was like something that I wanted to do. It was like a comment for me, like a year and a half ago, like, we were in the pandemic and a friend had said, cause I just always love asking questions, and I don't think they're invading, but the responses I would get from people, I think felt like they were invading, but, they were like, oh, you should have a podcast or a YouTube channel. And I was like, you know what? I actually did. Cause I had a friend and I, had this idea of doing something like that, but it never kind of ended up into anything. So then through our coursework that we're doing, it kind of just was like, you know what, I think I want to do that,
Mm-hmm.
but so that's cool. What happened for you, like in the shift of, cause I love, cause for me, like, I think you have all the answers. So not that you, like, and I'm like, oh, she just did it. Like, I don't really ever think that you went through what I went through. So not that I'm glad that you went through it, but it feels like, oh, okay, it's okay that I have these nerves or I'm nervous. But what was your inspiration too in creating the podcast, or how did it come that you wanted to do it?
Oh, well, I just, like I was saying, I always listen, and I always think, I thought at the time, because it was, 2 days before the lockdown, I have a 12 and a 15-year-old at the time, 11 and a 14-year-old. And, I'm busy mom. And
Mm-hmm.
that the last 15 years of my life have been devoted to being a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's my complete 100%. So when I was watching that class, Michelle's and Jenny's class she was, promoting this podcast. I thought, I want to have a podcast. Well, Michelle planted in one of my messages one day, you should have a podcast. And it was funny because she told me that was intentional. She's like, I just plant these little seeds and to see if you took it. And I said, you did? I said, because I never would have thought that, but you did plant it in my head.
Wait, so she planted it in her episodes, or
no,
you were
she
talking
left
with
a
her?
message because I said, like, I got to know her. So we became
Gotcha.
friends
Okay.
through me telling her I loved her podcast.
Uh-huh.
But she's good about those voice messages
Uh-huh.
instead of texting. So she'll say,
Okay.
oh, thank you so much for, on Instagram. Thank you for the response of the listening to my podcast. You should have a podcast. So it was one of those things. So I remember her, promoting it on Facebook and the first podcast accelerator class. So I thought, oh, listen to an hour, spiel on it.
Yeah.
And it spoke to me, and it's just like we were talking about taking inspired action and, knowing that, not questioning it. And I'm so into that right now in my life. And, to know that you take those little breadcrumbs and you keep going. And that's really how I've been at the beginning. Yeah, gosh, every thought you call me on and feel about and worry about, I had it all. Probably worse than you.
I
don't
don't hold back either. So I'm like, oh my God, I tend to go on every emotion. But I had something where you talked about I think I lost it. But it's sorry, I kind of lost it. But it was like, oh, inspiration. So let's go there with inspiration, because I think with what I was saying, for me, I get the inspiration thought, but then it, like the fear or whatever, I then question, is this inspiration or is this fear? So what is that for you when you have this inspiration thought and you keep feeling the inspiration, following the inspiration, but do you feel the fear too? And how do you decipher between the inspiration and the fear?
Well, the fear is when you start questioning it instead of just pushing through it, right? So the difference is trusting. And it's always like, when I know that any inspired thought to me is like, they're all the time. And if you don't take them, that's just fear. So you got to take them, keep going. Like the people that aren't living a full life and are living in this little box of fear, that are like afraid to do anything, they'll never get out of that place because they're not taking that inspired thought. But when you say, what's the difference between inspired thought and fear? Fear is just what's blocking you from taking the inspired thought. Right. You have inspired thoughts. It's constant, but no one can listen. No one listens to those.
How do you like distinguish though, like that it's an inspirational thought? Do you know what I mean? Like, what is that thing?
It
like,
gets me excited. Oh
okay.
my gosh. It kind of scares me.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, so if you feel
really do that,
like if you get scared, that's also like kind of a sign of an inspirational thought, right?
Yeah. Let's push past that. Everything that you want is on the other side of that.
Right. That's kind of true too. That was actually an indicator for me that I was like, holy crap, this is really like scary. And I'm like, okay, I probably should follow that.
Yes. Everything, like there's that quote, something, everything is, it's the thought of, everything's on the other side of fear. Everything you want is on the other side of fear. Whatever scares you, do it. There's all those little quotes, and it's so true when it does have that, all the little calls you gave me and all those, texts where you're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? All the things, but you just did it and you kept doing it. And look, and you're here like that. But, you could have sat back there and questioned it and said, I can't do this. This is like, I don't have time. I work and full time. And what am I thinking? But you get into your head like that and you start doing all those little games. But instead you start going, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but I'm just going to keep doing it. And that's the fun part of life. And that is why we are here. We're not here to stay in our box and, tell ourselves we could just, I have a job, and to give you all the excuses, right? Because you can find a million.
Exactly. I think that's probably why too, I go to you because I know that you're going to tell me that, but I need to hear it, so it's cool. So what was like your journey with that? Like, have you always been like, oh, let's follow the inspiration, or like have you always like, because to me, I know you to be that, and you're always like, I listen to your podcast, and like I say, you are like a ray of shiny light, like, like you're just always, everything just seems always so happy and inspirational, and just, you talk about your girls a lot. Like, I just love your commitment to your kids and just raising like phenomenal women and just like empowering them to be really amazing citizens in the world. Like, cause I hear like they have their gratitude list and they have their own, like what you said, they're like 15 and 11. Are they?
12 and 15.
12 and 15. And they have like, they do their gratitude lists every morning. So what shifted for you, or when did you start like going on this journey for yourself?
I think, you're either a seeker always, or maybe later in life, you've realized that, something major has to happen for you to become a seeker. But I've always been, I remember my dad always having Wayne Dyer books and, always being interested in all that, going into the bookstores and looking in self-develop, all the personal development, reading and then taking classes and going to Esther Hicks, going to Abraham Hicks seminars. I did Tony Robbins, anything. And I went to this company. My whole first episode is my life. I don't need to go there, but when you just look back at your life and you see the little, the steps that you took, and you did take the steps and you did follow through, and you didn't question it. And then you took, that took the classes and all that. I look back and go, just like I was saying, if you do this, I can do that. If I did that, I can do that. And I do look back at my life. But in my 20s, I was like, I didn't have like any clarity on what I wanted to do. So I'd have all these different jobs and moving and trying to find myself. And I remember I got married when I was like 29 to not a, oh my gosh, I'm madly in love. It was everyone else is married. And I look back and go, gosh, I wonder what that Ashley was, where her mind was. Cause I certainly would have said no, now it's this, but it's so fun to have. I love that story because I'm so much of a better, it's all part of my, pieces of my journey,
Right.
But once I left that marriage just for a year, we lived in Montana. I moved back to San Diego and got this job where they were promoting this seminar called PSI. And I kept putting it off. And I'm like, finally I go. And it just changed my whole I said, life can be like that. And it really changed me. And so I went to the next one and I went to the next one. I quit the job. I opened a business. I kept like buying houses. And I just kept pushing past the fear, trusting and surrendering because I saw how it worked. And I knew that now I knew how powerful, I could see the power from these classes and these things that I was reading and watching it come to life because I was doing it. And it was like, Ashley, this is exactly life. Like you have a high vibration, you're happy, you send out the vibes to the people and you see the magic. And I mean, I can't even tell you that when you start living that way and you understand that when you trust that thought and you keep taking the action and you keep going, that is like, I know I keep saying magic because uncover your magic is my thing, but people don't realize there's magic every day, and I love talking about magic moments.
I love that too, because it's almost kind of like in like Esther Hicks and Abraham, and even with Joshua's work, it's like building on the momentum too, right? So if you keep taking those those thoughts and thinking those thoughts, it's like you're building on that momentum, and then you start seeing like, oh, like you said, you did this, and then you're like, oh, I did this, and this is a result, and then it's like, okay, let me push past this fear, and then it keeps building on the momentum, and it really is, because I feel like I'm in that momentum now. Like I think I was playing in the contrast, like quote unquote contrast for, I mean, probably, yeah, up until, even though I'm a seeker, I've been always a seeker and like trying to figure it out. But I think now it's like the momentum, and it's like letting go of that control, it's, I think every day it's like, let go of the control. And then that's like the magic can kind of come in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Like the, when Esther or Abraham talks about the river and the rafts and, going upstream or downstream, is it an upstream thought or a downstream thought? And you think of that in your life, like how many upstream thoughts do you have? Are you going downstream? Just having that awareness and knowing that whatever you resist persists, and, everything, that I always teach, what you say, what you think the thoughts that you think and the words you speak are so powerful, and they're like your magic wand. So if you want to live in fear and wonder what, all these little thoughts that go in your mind, well, that's going to be your life, because whatever's going on inside of you is your life. So everything outside of you is a mirror of what's going on inside of you. So when you see your life, you're like, oh my gosh, is this my life? Like, if that's what's going on in me. But, you realize too, like the people that you start attracting and the ones that are like dissipating and not part of your life, and they are there for something. And then all of a sudden you couldn't keep them with you because, it just doesn't work. And it's not that they're bad or they're on nothing. They're just on their journey and to be in acceptance and never judging. It's like nothing could I judge, because I just know with all the things that we are learning, like because I know we're in Joshua together or into the ascension experience with Gary. But everything that we're learning as we keep going every day with our teachings, and the ones that don't. I see that a difference in my life, even the last couple of months of people.
Yeah. Let's just give some background to just a little bit about the teachings, because I haven't talked about that. Do you you're a little bit farther along. I mean, I'm of course behind you, but do you want to talk to, or we could both talk to like what the teachings of Joshua are, just so
Yeah.
there's some
Yeah.
something to
Something to refer
reference.
to.
Yeah.
So let's see, 2.5 years ago, I started listening to Joshua, and I don't know. It's like what he says is you're here because you were led to,
And Joshua, that's a podcast too, by the
Yes.
way.
Joshua Live. Gary Temple Bodley is the he channels Joshua. And I would listen to Abraham all the time, and it would say, if you love Abraham, and I looked down and would go, oh, look at this. And I remember being so addicted to that. There's not one podcast I never listened to.
Okay.
And I would think, and I started sending it to Richard, my husband, and he wasn't really an Abraham Hicks guy, but he really took on to Joshua.
Interesting.
And I started seeing a shift in our life, a big shift in the way everything, like he changed my thinking. And then I started, but this is before the podcast. Then I started the podcast. And I remember one night, Richard,
you were listening to the podcast first before anything?
For 2 years.
Okay. For 2 years. Okay.
And then started the podcast. And then one night he said, you should email Gary and see if he'll be a guest. And I go, really? You think? Oh my gosh. The next morning I went down that night, came up, he had emailed, of course, let's do it. Let's do it now. Like next week I go, oh my gosh, Gary's going to be on my podcast. So
were you in his teachings at this point, or just listening to his podcast?
Just listening to his podcast.
Okay. Gotcha.
I didn't do the boot camp.
And you had started your podcast during the time of listening to his podcast.
Yeah. Before I started my podcast, I was listening to Joshua.
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome.
Like 2 years before I started my podcast, I was listening.
Okay.
But anyway, so yeah, I had him on like in the 30s, and somewhere in the 30 episodes, I think was our first time. He's been on there 3 times.
Yeah.
But this ascension experience that he came up with really talked to me. And I thought, I'm drawn to his teachings, like really. And I think everyone in that group is so drawn to it. Like we are Joshua. But the first one is, alignment. In that first month of my life is when I realized my limiting beliefs. I live a really neutral life now, and it's 6 months into it. And it's so fun to wake up and be excited and be neutral and not have any anxiety, or not that I lived in anxiety, but anything that just to know that everything's perfect, and to live in a place of realizing and recognizing when you do fall down those, that little trigger, and you're like, it's almost fun now to go, gosh, I was triggered. Like, wonder why I got triggered, so having those manifestation event forms, which are all your limiting beliefs that come up, that anything that triggers you. But yeah, just being in that class together. And you love it just as much as me. So isn't it fun to think like we're on this journey? I'll never stop.
Yeah, totally. And so just to kind of go over to a limiting belief is just missing information. So it's kind of like those things that we say, like, I'm not good enough, or I can't have that because of this, or do you have any other examples of like? Well,
I just like to say it's a belief that you think is true, but isn't. Anything that you think is limiting you from life is an illusion.
Right.
And
thank you. Yeah.
So
we have a framework to work through to uncover. There's like a series of questions, a manifestation event, where then we can uncover these limitations that we have to prove them false. Right. So I think in that has been like the shift of being like, I mean, I have a really hard time at first, I shouldn't say that now. I had a really hard time proving them false. So it's just like a process. And I think it's a 13 courses. Each one is 4 weeks. And every 4 weeks, like a new one starts. And I think you're in the course ahead of me.
Yeah. I'm in oneness.
And I'm in health and vitality. So, I mean, yeah, for me, it's like, of course I'm going to keep going, because I also know that if I stop, like like we were talking about, I'm in the momentum. And if I stop, I feel that I would just get out of the momentum,
you wouldn't, but it's just, different. Because you're this far, and I think Because I have a friend that said, oh, I don't really have to fill out the manifestation event forms anymore. And I'm like, yeah, I'm neutral too. I haven't filled out one for months.
Mm-hmm.
I can do it within my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's fun now to, find them. But like
Yeah.
to teach everybody this is that we all have them. We're going to always have them. It's
Mm-hmm.
just if they're going to be something that triggers you or you can remain neutral.
Right.
So the idea is to become neutral. So when your life, you could just say, it's like nothing can affect me. And I mean that. It's like, you
Mm-hmm.
can sit there and yell at me all day long. This guy thought I flipped him off at the grocery store. I walked across, I go, that wasn't me. I said, I'm full pure love. Like, I don't know. Did you see the wrong person in the car? Like, it's just so funny thinking people are out there doing that.
Yeah.
In
I
a
know.
million years, I couldn't do that. I could,
Yeah.
if I'm in traffic now, it's like this, there's a reason for this. Nothing, it
Yeah.
doesn't even, I know I'll get on time when I'm supposed to be there. I know it's for a reason. I know it's perfect. It's like, I don't, I look at the day that if my girls taking them to school in the morning, I, like you were talking, I'm full on mom from, in the morning, and I get excited for them to wake up.
Oh.
And we do our routines that I teach my course now, my Raising Confidence.
Yep.
But I think when you come from a place of, if you quit this thing and you just said, well, I'm not the momentum won't, it'll lessen maybe because you don't have the group that you're in, continual, but you get to this place that I feel like we are now. And it's like, gosh, it's so amazing to live like that. I mean, aren't you excited when you wake up? Like, what's going to happen today? Like, I always tell the girls, like, let's find our magic moment. And I always go, this is my magic moment.
I have to tell you today, I filled out a manifestation event this morning because there is so much coming. And it's like inspiration. I'm like, I'm going to do that. 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 And I just want to do everything and everything. And it's, and I'm like, whoa, there's so much going on.
Funny.
And my husband's like, I'm like, well, I'll just do that while I don't need to sleep, it's just
right?
like, yeah, because it's really exciting. There's just so much stuff that excites me now that I was just like, oh, what's the point? Like before, I was always really a positive person and love life, but I just what's the point? But now it's like, hence I'm starting a podcast.
Right.
But so does your whole family do the coursework too? I know you said your kids do their gratitude list, which I think is phenomenal because I don't know many teenagers and young adults doing that. So what is that like for them, going into school, having that vibration and dealing with the crazy? How is that? That's awesome.
Well, so before I had kids and I had done all this work, I thought, when I get to have these babies, I know that from 0 to 7, they are being programmed by me, and I'm going to be so intentional to program them the right way. I never want to look back and say I wasn't there, or I shouldn't have done that, or I wish I did that. I didn't want any regrets. And I really, in my heart, don't. And it's such an amazing feeling to know as a mom that when they leave this house, that I've instilled these tools with them and that they are equipped to take on this life.
That's awesome.
And so when we do the gratitude, we always had a gratitude journal. They have, stacks of them from school years. We'd have the prettiest one in the car with the pen when they could write, like in first grade.
Aww.
And then they have to give compliments, 3 compliments a day, because I wanted to teach them to give and not expect in return, because they would say, but no one says thank you or anything back to me, Mom. Like, why am I telling people all these nice things? I said, because you want them to feel good. It's not about you. So teaching kids how to give versus take, or what can you give me was important. Setting an intention for the day, teaching them that, have a purpose, like look for something. If it's getting a good grade on a test or, being extra nice to some friend, but have one thing that you're focused on, because if you don't, I just call them drifters, like the kids with the drifters or the kids with their heads in the phone. My girls can only have 1 hour total on their phone when they're in life. So a day. And they know how to, they'll go, how many more minutes do you have, to each other. but it's not necessary. I just think it's wasted time. It's like, so when we work together on mindset tools, I see the fruit of my labor now, because now they're, more independent. They're making choices. They know their values because I've instilled in them. And so my friends had seen that, the moms had seen that. This is, when you say take inspired action, you have no idea where this podcast is going to go. I have no idea. I didn't know I was going to birth these classes for parents. And then, first I thought it was parents, but it wasn't. First started with kids, because they need, especially during the pandemic, they needed something. So they were like, can you help so-and-so? Can my friend, can we have a Zoom, or can I drop her off and you can help her? And I'm like, huh. So then Michelle had the next class where you could teach how to do a course online. And I just loved her. So I thought, I didn't know what it was about. I said, I'll sign up.
Right. So
I signed up, and I'm like, okay, I'll have a class.
So you started your podcast just out of an inspiration. And then from there, people just loved the parents loved what you talked about so much that they're like, can you teach my kids that? Because you were talking about like how you were raising your kids, or like, how did it?
A little bit. And it's so funny because I look back and I think it was, they saw the ones that contacted me first were the ones that have known me and saw the girls and knew I always taught them all these tools. So I think they were at a place where they were at home with their computer, with no sports or friendships. And they were listening to the podcast, and they said, is there any chance you'd help me, kind of thing? And so that's where my class came and emerged. And then I put it together in taking that class. And then the parents started wanting to take it. So I created the magic path. And then Richard's like, I think you need a website. And I go, okay, but it's keeping going, and it's consistency. And I know you learned that with Jenny and Michelle in that class. It's like, to get to podcast number 3, that's even a benchmark, because not many people make it past 3. Then I remember the number 18 was a huge one.
Yeah. They say Michelle always, and just to let you guys know, we took a podcast class with Michelle and Ginny, and they teach you pretty much like the step-by-step to get your podcast launched. So they say when you get to episode 18, you're good.
Like 70% of people don't get to 18. That was like a celebration for me. But it's, what you learn in life, podcast or no podcast or whatever you want to look at it this way, is when you keep going and you keep, like I always say, the breadcrumbs, but when you keep consistent and continually going, that's when you get the momentum. Like everything, put it all together is just keep going. Consistency creates the momentum. Live a resistant free life, keep moving forward. Don't question it. Don't put fear in the way. When there is fear or you have something that comes up, go, stop and say, that's interesting. That isn't even true. And prove it not wrong. I mean, if you don't have a manifestation event at home, to everybody that's listening, just stop whenever you're triggered and realize that it's not true, whatever's making you upset or whatever, and prove it wrong. You could think of anything, you can make it up. It's like, that's what
like, because even if you're like, oh, I couldn't do that. And it's like, well, did you get up out of bed today? Yep. Did you brush your teeth? Yep. You did that. I think we take all these things for granted, and we just don't really even look at what we have or what we do. We're just always looking, or I'll speak for myself. I was looking in the lack and what I'm not doing, what I think I should be doing compared to other people. And then there's always this, like, being in a limitation, and that's just not really true.
Right. And even saying, comparing yourself to others, that's the thing. Like, people get so into that. And when you realize that is just a roadblock, because I just don't, I think at my age, because I'm 52, I don't, I'm at the place too, like, 80 episodes in, there's such a variety of people on this podcast. I mean, I had one guy that was talking about teleportation and going to Jamaica, and he came on his couch and he had sand in his toes and he had a tan, and I'm listening to him going, oh my gosh, people are going to listen to this podcast now and go, wow, Ashley's really crazy. And no, like, where is she going now?
I know.
But I had
That's
so many people
amazing.
reach out to me about that. So
Yeah.
it was actually an amazing episode, but you just never know. And I feel like when you realize in life, when you just keep that consistency, I mean, it's like going to the gym. You can't just go once and be a bodybuilder, and I have that part that I'm like that kind of person. I'm very like routine, and at 4 a.m, it's like, it can't be 4:01. My feet have to be on the floor, and I don't miss a workout. I have my same vitamins.
Do you wake up at 4 a.m. every day? Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And because I have dogs, so I do a run, but I do all my stuff that I teach, my meditation, my gratitude, I have the students, I send text messages in the morning, and some are on East Coast. So that really kind of inspires me to get out too, but I've always been an early person. But when you have that routine and you create a muscle, like I have with my kids and their routine, and they see that, it's like, now you see these kids that have these routines, and after they've finished my class, and the parents are like, our house is so different. We have intention in the morning. The vibration's high. We're happy. We're not fighting. The car ride to school is amazing because we're doing our affirmations and all the things you've taught us. And I think, gosh, I didn't take for granted that I was teaching them that was a muscle. Like, we don't miss a day. There hasn't been a day where we leave this house in the car and on the way to school, and we'll turn the corner and it will be like, here we go.
I think that's phenomenal, because I could not imagine, like, thinking back when I was a teenager. I don't have kids, so I have no reference in that. But when I was a teenager, I thought I knew everything. And I mean, I'll say I was a pretty good kid, but I had my rebellious, but just to think, like, having that and being in that flow, like, so is that too what you teach in your programs, is like putting that routine in the morning?
Oh yeah.
And
that's our first week.
I'm thinking of like hormonal teens. Like, if you have that structure, like, yeah, that's gotta be really pleasant for parents. Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the feedback that you're getting from parents.
But, like, when I explain why a morning routine is so important, I get up at 4 because I'm creating a vibration for me. That's my intention. When my girls wake up and have breakfast, I've done my gratitude. I've done my meditation. I've gone on my run and listened to a podcast. I'm in awe of looking around at my life and gratitude. Like, it really sets it up, and they come downstairs and there's no room to be even 1 ounce in tired, or that line of happiness, and the vibration is like so high that they just it's just like I'm the thermostat, they raise my level.
Right.
They have to. Yeah. I mean, that's just like science. We're energy. And I can't imagine like rolling out of bed and barely being awake and good morning, girls. Like, it just wouldn't work. Like, they'd be like, what, mom? Like, they're so used to me being so like, hi, good morning. It's a new day. Like, this is so exciting. We get to live this day. And, it's always live in the moment and be loving and give love. And, it's always these words that we speak. But, when I see them now at this age, like Paige, a sophomore in high school, if I knew what I teach her, my life would completely be different.
And what I love about that too, is like, you're fueling you, right? Like, you're so, like, I hear you on your podcast, like, you are so committed to your kids, and like, just like you said, you knew that you wanted to instill in them from the beginning, and your commitment to your kids. But I love that you take that time for yourself, because I feel that, like, parents are like, oh, I don't know. This is like what I hear. Cause I used to actually teach. I was a personal trainer back in the day, and parents would be like, not work out for like a really long time. And they're like, I just don't have time. I don't have time. And it's like, and again, I was in my 20s, like, total different priority set. But I was like, I just don't understand. How do you not make time for yourself? But you wake up at 4 a.m. so you can have that time. You take care of you and give that nourishment to you so that you can give to your kids and be present with them.
Totally.
I think that's really awesome. And then, so do you have programs too for parents? Cause I would think that
Yeah.
would
So
be,
I have programs. I have the magic path that I created through like, it's the same thing. Like I just kept taking inspired action thoughts that
yeah.
came. I had parents say, would you do it? Can I do it with my daughter? I would like to do
Oh,
something
okay.
together. And
Oh, that's cool.
so I created the magic path, and then the raising confidence was the original one. But the magic path is mirrors the kids program.
So
It's eight,
the parents and the kids are kind of going through a
it together.
program together, but separate.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so when they get the adult part is a different reading, like a different every week we go through the same, like it's
Mm-hmm.
mindset and morning routine, and then we go through the goal setting, we make vision boards, and then we
Mm-hmm.
do the gratitude, and now next week we're doing self-limiting beliefs, and then we do core values. I teach them the four agreements book because I
Oh,
think that's
awesome.
a
That's
really
a good
important.
book. Yeah.
And then at the end, kind of bring it all together and bring in the laws of the universe and explain more. We do scripting. I teach them, how you just manifesting and visualizing, and it all comes together. But when the magic path came in, it was these moms at wanting to do it with their kids, or moms that were like, had too young of kids, like they wouldn't be able to sit on a Zoom call because we have an
Right.
hour Zoom. It's very
Right.
one-on-one.
Right.
So she joined and Magic Path and then joined the Raising Confidence. So I do them both with her and her kids, but they're 5 and 6. But
Oh, that's
she's
so
so
cute.
intentional.
Yeah.
She's like, I want whatever you taught your
Yeah.
girls to start early. So, it just depends. But that's the thing. Like, who knows where in a year from now what it'll be.
Yeah.
But I
It's
just
so,
love the
because
one-on-one.
you're on such a mission, like, you're 80 something episodes in and you're just freaking unstoppable at this
Oh, yeah.
point. You are such an inspiration. You're an inspiration to me, and you're an inspiration to all these people, because I just think that is such an awesome mission. Like also too, like I think, you hear about all the stuff that happens with kids now with social media and being bullied. Like, how awesome would that be?
Yes.
Um,
Oh,
and
and I'm one of those moms that has gone through like watching this bully thing or watching girls. I mean, I have 2 girls and girls are mean.
mhm,
And
mhm,
if they haven't had what I've taught my girls,
mhm,
it's kind of like I always say they're hurting if they're, could you imagine
mhm,
treating someone like that?
mhm.
But just to know that the girls know how to, when they are bullied, it's kind of like, mom, she must be hurting inside, so
Oh,
they know that.
yeah.
But I just feel like, the social media and the pressure that these kids have these days, if they don't have mindset tools to rely on or know their values, and, I drill those in so much, and their choices that they make, I always say it's your GPS system, like
Mm,
if you know your core values, if you're a
mhm,
teenager, you know what's going to happen. If you go to a party, they're doing something, to call my page. Like I
mhm,
would never go guilty. I wouldn't, being guilty with not doing it. She knows. I
mhm.
mean, I have so much confidence in them. I mean, Paige is at the point where she'll like, oh, I really think she has, I sat next to so-and-so in, drama, and has really good values, mom. And she doesn't swear. It's so
Oh,
funny, but
they
we
pick
did.
up on these things.
Yeah, but it's so funny. I remember when she started her new high school, she's like, mom, girls swear. And I
Oh,
thought, oh, that's why we moved you to this new school. So you understood before you went to college that, yeah, girls do swear and they do a lot more than you even know.
that's so precious. That's so cute. I know. Oh, wow. Well, Ashley, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure of mine. And I know I'll have you back on. So I know, because I know we'll keep growing and evolving. And like we said the other day, I feel like you're my soul sister.
We
So
are,
yeah,
for
I
sure.
feel
No
like
question.
we were brought together for a reason. So I thank you so much for your time today. This was phenomenal. And I will put your information in the show notes. But do you want to share too where people can find you?
Oh, sure. My podcast is Uncover Your Magic. I have a website, ashleygonor.com. And then all my social media is, Facebook, Instagram is all my name, Ashley Gonor. Easy to find, and always just such a fun being on the other side of an interview. hard a little bit because I love
it?
asking questions. And I find myself, looking at you, wanting to ask you things too. But it's fun to be interviewed, it kind of puts everything together.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you formulate it as into one place. And I was like, okay. Yeah, I guess so. That's what happened.
I really love this conversation. So thanks for taking my questions.
Oh, you did an amazing job.
Thank you.
And here's to the next 80 episodes for you.
Thank you so much. Much love.
You're welcome. Love to you too.
Thank you.